Welcome to the next project. We are again working on the Epiphone 335, or actually 355 Reneck project series. We did get the original neck out of the guitar, made a new neck, used the original fingerboard, new binding on there. We also then decided to do some weight relief, took the back off the guitar, cut 1 pound away from the center block that runs right through the middle of this, put the back on, new binding. The neck is now glued into the body. Just weighed it. It weighs 5.9 pounds as a husk like this. Not too bad. What else? That's like 2,700 grams. Yeah. Let's take a look at what's going on to get us here as we start or continue the next project. We are just having a good time today. We've got some sanding going right away. Now, wait a minute. This is a different type of sanding. This is one of those drum things you clamp in your drill and I don't know what you do with this. Now, to be fair, I bought the cheapest one I could find on Amazon. There are some that are like $100. I think I got this one for like $20 because I wasn't sure if it would be good or not. And honestly, it's pretty good. It does have a little bit of a off-center wobble to it, at least with this drum, but it did a great job. If I was having to do this by hand, I would probably jump off the roof or something. Speaking of sanding, which I'm doing, I should have done all of this sanding before I routed the channel for the new binding on the back. That would have made life a lot easier. So pay attention to the sequence of things and don't do what I do because I make it up as I go. Smooth. Oh man, I learned a new trick, how to put on these little rubber gloves. I watched some kind of EMT, emergency medical technician, do a little demonstration on how to put these gloves on fast. Now I know. I still can't put them on fast, but at least I know how to do it. Here we're binding a bunch of different, we're gluing a bunch of different binding together to make a bigger, thicker piece of binding. Using acetone to gently melt the different layers of binding strips and pulling it through a Stumac binding fixture jig thing. It's made out of some kind of like a nylon material or Delaron or however they pronounce that. The acetone doesn't bother it at all. As you can see, it melts the binding pretty quick. You get kind of a slurry of goop running out of it as you squeeze it together. And overall, this goes pretty quick. I've done it both ways, with and without, and at first I hated this Stumac tool, but the more I use it, the more I'm like, yeah, it pretty much does the job. So we have a multiply binding ready to go with loose ends, and there's going to be a reason for that. Stay tuned. Giving the glue side of the binding a quick scrape to take the shiny off it and make it nice and smooth so glue will stick to it really well. So let's see, got a little piece of tape. That is my center point. The back is on the guitar, all that weight is routed away. We saved just a hair over 1 pound. Glued the back on. We got our control cover cut out and a mounting shelf put in there, and everything fits nicely. It's time to do some rebinding of the back. I've sanded away all the edges to make it a uniform thickness because there was a lot of factory sealer buildup and paint and various other things. So we've got that all done. We've got our binding channels cut back into the body, stepped. We've got a tall route for the outermost binding, which would be this one here. Then we've got a step down ledge, rabbit, for all the fine inner bindings, multiply. So it's time to start putting binding back on the back. And I've got a multiply binding started. This has been laminated together all the way around except for the very ends, and that is so I can get it around the body up to the horns, and I want to leave the horn part loose so I can bend the binding around the horns and get it glued in where it needs to be, hopefully more easily. And then when that's all done and dried out, then I'll go back and put the tall, wide outer binding on everything. That'll be a separate step. So, time to start gluing this piece, multiply piece, in place. And this has a cream starting piece of binding, which will go in innermost layer of binding. Then it's black, white, black, and then there'll be a big white piece on the outside of it. The reason I used cream is because I had it on hand, and when I refinish the back, that thin piece of cream binding is going to get covered up anyway, and actually is closer to the color of the body at the moment. So a lot of steps, baby steps, lots and lots of baby steps as we continue the next project. So I used acetone originally to bond the binding layers together, and now I'm using a weld-on 16 plastic cement to glue the binding to the body. Also using masking tape, kind of butterflied, so it has extra strength where it folds over the sharp edges to hold everything on. And just when you thought it was safe to go outside, there is more binding to be done. Here I'm scraping back the multi-layer binding or perf and gluing on a bigger outside piece of binding using my custom 3M masking tape folded to like a butterfly kind of thing just to stick this on. Also using that weld-on 16 plastic cement works really well for this. A lot of different things going on. Always trying stuff too. I do have some of the Stumac Bondol, and it actually got hard in the tube. Sad day. I ended up sanding all of the factory finish off of the sides of the body, which I should have done earlier on in hindsight. I was trying to save work early on by not doing that. But the reality is it needed to be done. It needed to come off to get a good uniform edge finish on the sides. So I could get the channels routed for the binding and the binding in and all that good stuff. So at the moment I've got the neck temporarily clamped into the body, checking the scale length. I had the bridge dropped on the posts, and I'm about 1 millimeter long, actually, greater dimension than I need, which is better than being too short, but we could fix that too. The neck's not glued in yet, right? So what I'm going to do soon is clean up the front edge of the neck pocket part of the body, because when I removed the original neck, glue and everything else was in there, and I need to true that edge up a little bit. And that should be about the millimeter that I need to pull the neck back into the body and have a spot on scale length. I'm debating if I'm going to put the frets in before I paint or after I paint. I'll probably put them in before. That way there's less chance of damaging the paint later. So let it help me remember. Put the frets in before you paint. It's cold out here in the garage. It was 21 degrees Fahrenheit this morning when I came out. I don't know what that is Celsius. Cold, I think. I'm wearing extra layers. The lizards and snakes and alligators in the neighborhood are not moving too fast. So that's a sign. So I'm a big wuss. I'm gonna go in the house and drink some coffee, warm up a little bit. My fingers are complaining. I'm going inside as we continue the next project. Thinking about getting serious, trying to muster the courage to glue the neck into the body. But I figured I better give it another test run to make sure everything is in the right place. So I clamped the neck into the body. I have a little piece of wood that I put in the humbucker cavity and run a couple screws in. And now I'm going to also verify my scale length once again, putting in the posts and the bridge itself. And we'll be seeing a yardstick coming out here shortly, and I'll be double or triple or quadruple checking, whatever the magic number is. It's looking pretty good. I did have to do a little more sanding and scraping and things, but we got it dialed in, so it's going to be just right. Putting a fake nut in place instead of just holding it against my finger. I'm high tech. Really am very high tech. Speaking of high tech, look at this guy. He's got an index finger glue applicator going on. And you would think after watching a video where an EMT shows you how to put on those rubber gloves, you would have just put on rubber gloves. What an idiot. So again, smearing glue with a custom index finger applicator, wiggling the neck into place. We've already checked its fit a dozen times. Clamping that little block that goes within the humbucker pickup cavity. As I was doing my dry fitting, I was like, I got to figure out a better way to clamp the tail end of the neck to the body, kind of where the tenon leaves the neck and goes into the body. And I was like, you know what? I have one of those 3D printed sanding block test pieces. I was like, I'm just going to clamp that on there. And I tried it and it worked. And then I was like, you know what? It'd be nice to be able to run my carbon fiber rod that I use kind of as a straight edge, put it right up the middle. So I cut a notch out of it. And then I was like, you know what? I think I can make one of these. So after I left this to dry for a day, I hopped on the computer and I designed up a little 3D printed clamping caul. We'll take a look at it here in a little bit. I haven't tried it yet, but I think it's going to work out really well. And thank you for reminding me. I decided I should put the frets in before we get it ready for paint. Now, I've got plenty of time before this is going to be in paint, but timing was right. I had the moment. I had fret wire, which, we did measure. When you get new fret wire, if you care, you can measure it to see if it's accurate or not. Here I'm cleaning out all the fret slots, which is a very important thing to do. And it's a little more tricky because this has binding on the edges. Now, if this is open fret slots from side to side, you could just slide a fret saw through there, clean everything out nice and easy. But since this is a bound neck, there's something in the way. So we have to take a little more time to do it. And we are checking the measurement of the wire. Now, this was originally going to be Dunlop 6105. So I ordered some. It looks good. It's a nice fret wire. However, I measured it, and it's not really up to spec. It's on the small side of its size range, which is pretty consistent, and it's pretty nice wire. But yeah, maybe not quite what I wanted. So I grabbed some Jescar wire that is pretty much the same spec, and actually this wire was just a hair over its spec size. So it's actually closer to what the Dunlop was supposed to be. And so anyway, we're going with Jescar wire. Nickel wire. Doesn't seem to matter what I'm working on and get ready to go. I'm gonna put frets in. Then I'm like, oh no, I have to measure the frets and check the radius on the frets and clean the frets. And then I have to nip the tang back since this is a bound fingerboard. So I have to nip the tang away, which takes a little bit of time. Fortunately, this is nickel wire, so it made it pretty easy. And then since it is a bound board, I also need to remove the little burr from where I nipped off the tang. So typically I'll use a Dremel tool for this, especially if it's stainless wire. I use a little Dremel tool with a cutoff wheel on it to grind that little bit of tang burr away. But since this is nickel wire, I just use a small file and tortured my fingertips a little bit. But it went really well. Cleaned up really nice. We're getting close. I'm getting excited. Woo! All right, things are getting pretty exciting, and you're going to say, what's up with the chapstick? That's odd. Well, there's a reason. This is to help keep super glue, or whatever glue I might be using, from soaking into or sticking to the fingerboard. Quite often use beeswax also. I do have my frets nipped back, the tang, so that fit right in between the binding, using a J. Edwards Cologne fractal press in my fret crusher press. I have 3D printed a little cradle to hold the neck. I position it right below the fret that I'm pressing in. That's working pretty good. I'm not using glue at this point though. We'll see that coming up shortly. There's a different way. Put frets in a number of different ways. It's good to have options. Good to practice different things. So anyway, using the press, it's going really well. We're getting that thing dialed in. Well, we are inching along and we now have nickel frets pressed into this Reneck project. These are spec'd as Dunlop's 6105, which is supposed to be 93 thousandths wide and 59 thousandths high at the crown. However, the pack of 6105 that I received was consistently small, undersized throughout. So I ended up getting some Jescar fret wire that is closer to the spec that the Dunlop is supposed to be. So these are actually Jescar frets, nickel frets. So we got them all pressed in. Used the fret crusher and a clone of the J. Edwards fractal press. Modified my press just a little bit. Also worked on some different support. Give more stability where I'm pressing frets in. That's all working pretty good. We're getting it dialed in. Still have some more tweaks to go. Let's see what else we did. Flipped it over after that was all done. Ran a Fret Guru XT, which is like a fret rocker on steroids. It does a whole bunch of other things. It's more talented than just fret rocking. Checked for high spots and found a couple. Tapped those in with a little fret set punch. Got everything looking really good. Flipped the guitar upside down as we're seeing and wicked in some thin super glue on the piece of fret wire that was left hanging out on either side. And what it does, it'll basically draw it right in along the tang of the fret. So we got that all done. Used our chapstick on the fingerboard first, so cleanup was really easy. Not a problem. Well, that's about it for today. I want to thank you very much for hanging out with me. If you haven't done so already, please subscribe to the channel. I would greatly appreciate that. Hit the thumbs up button. Lets YouTube know you like stuff like this, and I like to know you like stuff like this too. What else? Ring the bell for future notifications. I think that's what it does. I could be wrong. Leave comments. I love hearing from everybody all around the world. What else? I don't know. Please take care of yourself and those around you. Until next time, bye.